Today is December 6, 2025. Look at your calendar. Now look at your portfolio. Now look at the headlines coming out of Budapest. If you're just reading the mainstream financial press, the Bloombergs, the FTs, you probably saw a small blip on the radar yesterday. Fitch Ratings cut Hungary's outlook to negative. Oh, boring, you say. Another credit rating agency doing what they always do, showing up to the scene of the accident 3 hours late to draw a chalk outline around the body. But you know me. I don't do boring. And I certainly don't do small blips. Because what is happening in Hungary right now isn't just about a credit rating. It is the single most perfect, terrifying case study of the political business cycle we have seen in this decade. It is a masterclass in how to burn down an economy to win an election, and here is the twist: how to get the bond market to applaud while you light the match. Viktor Orban is scared. The April 2026 elections are 4 months away. The polls are tight. And when a politician is scared, they don't read Adam Smith. They don't read Keynes. They read Santa Claus. In today's episode, we are going to analyze the truth behind the Goulash giveaway. We're going to expose why the Hungarian Forint is trading at a 2-year high while the country's creditworthiness is rotting from the inside out. And we're going to explain why a 3% fixed-rate mortgage in a 6.5% interest rate world is not a gift, it's a time bomb. I'm the boss. I've restored the full picture for you. Let's dive in. Let's start with the news that dropped yesterday. Fitch Ratings affirmed Hungary at BBB but cut the outlook to negative. Why? Because the budget deficit target has been blown to smithereens. The government said the deficit would be 3.7% in 2026. Now, they're admitting it will stay at 5%. That is not a rounding error. That is a deliberate, calculated injection of cash into the veins of the electorate. We have to talk about what this money is being spent on. Usually, when a government runs a 5% deficit, you hope they're building bridges, upgrading the power grid, or maybe, just maybe, funding that German Miracle 2.0 reindustrialization package we talked about last week. But no. Orban is spending this money on what I call the fiscal bribe. First, the lifetime income tax exemption. You heard that right. We already had this for mothers with 4 children. Now, as the polls tighten, the eligibility is expanding. If you are a mother in Hungary, the state is effectively telling you, vote for us, and you will never pay income tax again. Now, I love tax cuts. Who doesn't? But a tax cut without a spending cut isn't a tax cut. It's a tax deferral. It's debt. And who pays that debt? Your children. The very children this policy is supposedly encouraging you to have. It is a cynical loop where the government mortgages the future of the next generation to buy the votes of the current one. Second, the wage hikes. The government is aggressively hiking public sector wages and pushing minimum wage increases right before the vote. This feels great when the direct deposit hits your account. But in an economy that has been stagnant for 3 quarters, yes, stagnant, where is the productivity growth to pay for these wages? It doesn't exist. This is inflationary fuel being poured onto a fire that the central bank is desperately trying to put out. And third, the piece de resistance, the mortgage subsidies. Let's restore the full picture on this mortgage scheme. The government is offering subsidized mortgages at, get this, a 3% fixed interest rate. Do you know what the Hungarian central bank's base rate is right now? It's 6.5%. Let that sink in. The risk-free rate, the cost of money for the government itself, is 6.5%. But they are handing out money to home buyers at 3%. This is economic insanity. It's arbitrage. Every single loan issued under this program is a guaranteed loss for the state budget or the banking sector. They are paying you 3.5% per year to borrow money from them. Why? Because housing prices in Budapest were starting to wobble. Construction was slowing down. And nothing makes a voter grumpier than seeing their home equity drop 4 months before they head to the ballot box. So, Orban is artificially propping up the housing market. He is creating a bubble on purpose. Fitch sees this. Moody's sees this. That's why they cut the outlook. They know that after April 2026, the party stops. The hangover begins. But Orban doesn't care about 2027. He cares about April 2026. Now, here is where it gets interesting. This is the part that confuses the average person and makes the professional trader salivate. If the government is wrecking the budget, running a 5% deficit, and buying votes, the currency should be crashing, right? The forint should be in the toilet. But look at the chart. The forint is trading at its strongest level since early 2024 against the euro. It's a rock. Why? Because of factor 2, the interest rate shield. Remember that 6.5% base rate? That is the highest in the European Union, tied with Romania. While the ECB is dealing with the Dutch Great Rotation and trying to figure out how to handle the liquidity void, Hungary is paying you 6.5% to hold its cash. In a world where the US Federal Reserve has paused and the ECB is confused, a guaranteed 6.5% yield is like water in the desert for foreign investors. This is the carry trade. Hedge funds in London and New York borrow euros at 2.5% or 3%, convert them into forints, and park them in Hungarian bonds to earn that 6.5%. They pocket the difference. This demand for Hungarian assets drives up the value of the currency. It makes the forint look strong. It makes Orban look like a genius. Look, he says on TV. The forint is strong. The West is wrong. But this strength is artificial. It is not based on productivity. It is not based on exports. It is based on a bribe to foreign capital. And here is the danger. This is what we call hot money. These investors aren't building factories in Debrecen. They aren't funding startups in Budapest. They are parking cash in short-term bonds. The second, they sniff that the deficit is getting out of control, or that the central bank might be forced to cut rates to save the real economy, poof. They are gone. We saw a glimpse of this last month. Did you see the bond yields jump? That was a warning shot. The bond vigilantes woke up for a second. They saw the 5% deficit target and said, whoa, hold on. Yields spiked. But then, the greed took over again. The yields receded in the last 2 weeks because the demand for emerging market yield is just too high right now. Investors are picking up pennies in front of a steamroller. And that steamroller is the post-election austerity package. We have to talk about the real economy versus the financial economy. Financially, Hungary looks weirdly okay for the moment. High reserves, strong currency. But strip away the subsidies. Strip away the government spending. What is left? A stagnant economy. The data doesn't lie. GDP growth is flat. Germany, Hungary's biggest trading partner, is pivoting. The German auto industry, the engine that pulled Hungary along for 20 years, is undergoing a painful restructuring. They aren't buying as many parts from Hungarian factories. So, the private sector is shrinking. The only thing generating growth right now is government spending. Orban is replacing organic economic activity with debt-fueled consumption. Think of it like a car. The engine is sputtering. So, the driver decides to cut a hole in the floor and run like Fred Flintstone. It looks like the car is moving. But you can only run so fast before your legs give out. This is why the Fitch report is so damning. Analysts Małgorzata Krzywiecka and Erika Risk-Morales, names you should memorize, wrote that the projections for public finances have significantly worsened. They are politely saying, you guys are lying about the future. They know that to keep the deficit at 5% with all these giveaways, the government is banking on GDP growth that simply isn't there. If growth comes in at 1% instead of the government's fantasy 3%, the deficit isn't going to be 5%. It's going to be 7%. Or 8%. And that is when the BBB rating vanishes. That is when we drop to junk. This is the part of the video where I tell you what to do. If you are Orban, you pray you win in April. Because whoever wins that election is going to inherit a disaster. On May 1, 2026, the music stops. The 5% deficit is unsustainable. The EU will demand corrections. The excessive deficit procedure will kick in. The government will have to do two things. 1. Raise taxes, all those nice tax cuts? They will be clawed back via VAT hikes, sectoral taxes on banks and retailers, and inflation. 2. Spending, subsidies will be cut. Public investments will be frozen. And what happens to the central bank? Right now, they are keeping rates at 6.5% to defend the forint. But once the fiscal stimulus is withdrawn, the economy will crash. The central bank will want to cut rates to help growth. But if they cut rates, the hot money leaves, and the forint crashes. They are trapped. They are trapped between a fiscal rock and a monetary hard place. This is the goulash trap. It tastes warm and hearty right now. But you're going to have terrible indigestion tomorrow. So, what is the truth? The truth is that Hungary is currently a leveraged buyout. The government is leveraging the country's balance sheet to buy a renewed term in office. The bond market is complicit because the yield is too good to pass up. The voters are complicit because who says no to free money? And the rating agencies are the only ones quietly whispering, hey, this math doesn't work. If you are holding Hungarian assets, enjoy the 6.5% yield while it lasts. But keep your finger on the sell button. Because political business cycles always end the same way, with a correction. The forint isn't strong because the economy is healthy. It's strong because the interest rate is high. The polls aren't tightening because the opposition is weak. They are tightening because the government is buying loyalty. And the deficit isn't 5% because of an emergency. It's 5% because that is the price of power in 2025. That's it for today's Boss Economic World. I've restored the full picture for you. The government spends, the rating agencies frown, and you, well, you foot the bill. If you like this analysis, smash that like button, it helps the algorithm more than a 3% mortgage helps a Budapest first-time buyer. Subscribe for more updates as we track the 2026 election cliff. I'm the boss. And I'll see you in the next crisis.